One battle after another, aka Antifa versus MAGA, the movie. Oh my goodness! Yes, as Paul Thomas Anderson's latest opus unfolded before me, I couldn't decide, and I think that the ad campaign for this movie would do itself a service to highlight how this movie actually does correlate with a lot of real life events. But when I was watching the movie, I was like, is this just leaning in to ridiculous, far-fetched political conspiracy theories like some kind of fantasy movie? Or is it reveling and revealing a world that really does exist and that few of us and that the media, few of us are privy to because the powers that be in the media often hide it? Like, who'd have believed what was going on with Epstein and P. Diddy? Who would think that we would have a Supreme Court justice who's part of a religious cult? Who would think RFK Jr. would actually exist? And yet all these things are real. By the way, Sean Penn is doing one heck of an RFK Jr. impression in this movie. So again, my first reaction was like, oh my gosh, this is just like some kind of crazy fantasy. But as I watched the movie and the more and more I thought about it while watching it and then after the fact, the more I was like, there might actually be a lot of truth here. I think part of the thing that shocked me at the beginning of the film was that it seems to promote Antifa-style violence against the government and law enforcement. And how can you glorify that, but then turn around and condemn the actions of January 6th? I mean, either we're a law and order society or we're not. However, it is impossible to deny that the system is failing many people. So who can blame those people for taking a stand? And while I do believe that you can best bring about the most change from within the system, what about people who have no hope of ever getting into the system? Are they supposed to just lie down and take it? I mean, One Battle After Another is an incredibly long movie at 2 hours and 45 minutes. And I would say the first third of it was my least favorite. I thought that the movie became the most interesting to me when they did the time jump to when DiCaprio's daughter becomes a teenager. And I thought that the story that unfolded then, I thought the movie picked up considerably in entertainment value. When I think back, I think the first third has a lot of really important stuff to say. So as you can see, this movie has really been making me think. And isn't that what great art is supposed to do? Critics, the media, Steven Spielberg, he's going around saying he's seen this movie 3 times already. And again, it's a very long movie, so that is no small feat. Everyone in those circles is just going crazy over this movie. When the social media embargo lifted the other day, I just couldn't believe the tsunami of praise for this film. I mean, I'm still thinking about it, but I mean, I was caught off guard. So I think with this film, award season has officially arrived. And that gives Warner Brothers, by the way, two strong contenders out of the gate with This and Sinners. What a year for Warner Brothers. Undeniably at the box office, but maybe for award season as well. Wow. I'll be covering award season closely for the next few months, all the way through the Oscars, like in March. They're too far. The Oscars should be moved up. But be sure to subscribe for my reviews of these films to see how they do at the box office and are received by audiences. And then also, of course, to see if they actually do get nominations and, of course, who wins. And also, I'm a Critics' Choice member, which means I vote for these movies as well. And Critics' Choice, we're going first this year. We finally did it. We finally got out in front of the Golden Globes, and we'll hand out our trophies first. Right now, as a Critics' Choice member, I'm seriously considering One Battle After Another, and I always walk you through my voting as well. So that's another reason to subscribe and to follow me on social media. I always share my ballot, nominating and for the final vote. But I'm considering this film for Best Picture and Best Supporting Actor for Benicio Del Toro. Like when the movie was over, I was like, Del Toro. And then the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, I think I can get behind a Best Picture nom. Maybe Paul Thomas Anderson also for director. Again, it's early days. A lot of movies still to see. But what about Leonardo DiCaprio? Warner Brothers, they reach out to you after these award screenings to get your feelings. And they were like, what about, and I told them, I was like, Benicio. And they were like, what about Leo? And I was like, I don't think so. I I mean, he's Leonardo freaking DiCaprio. He'll probably get nominated, maybe, but I don't think he deserves it, to be honest with you. And I love Leo, and he's very funny here, but his role lacks gravitas and meaning that the other roles have. I think Sean Penn is a better choice to nominate out of this movie rather than DiCaprio. Because DiCaprio, I mean, he serves a very important role here. He's the comedic relief. He lightens the mood in what at other times is a very serious film. And so while I think his performance and character are vital to the overall, formula of the movie, on its own, I just don't think it's awards worthy. I mean, he's part of an awards worthy film. I mean, that I think obviously should count for a lot. And he's using his star power, I think, to get this movie the attention from both the industry and from general audiences that maybe with another cast it wouldn't get. So that's very commendable. Now, obviously the left, especially the far left, are going crazy over this movie. Whoo boy, a fantasy film just for them. But what about how conservatives in the far right might feel about the film? Is this going to become a battleground on social media in the discussion space, right? That makes conservatives once again say, Hollywood, right? Or is this a movie that we can all rally behind together? So, as you would expect from a movie like this, it comes down very hard on the far right. Christmas caught some strays. I was like, oh man, I really regret that people on the far right politicize Christmas. You don't need to drag Christmas into politics. But I gotta say, that the Christmas jokes absolutely killed with my audience of critics. So Paul Thomas Anderson was right to go there. But on the flip side, is there anything for conservatives to enjoy about the film, since it's such an aggressive political film? Well, it does seem to give credence to a lot of the conspiracy theories that MAGA often promotes, and that the left has tried to say that's ridiculous. And so this movie's like, maybe it's not ridiculous. And then you're like, what are you doing? Like, this movie really, makes it seem like Antifa-style groups are very real. And I don't want to give any spoilers away, but there are elements, let's say law enforcement going undercover within protest groups that, the internet tries to spread as truth. And this movie's like, it is true. And you're like, what are you doing? So I'm not sure which way, public opinion will break for this movie beyond New York and Los Angeles. I hope that everybody goes in with an open mind. I think everybody kind of gets hit hard on both sides. So maybe, just like we're all stuck on this crazy ride together in real life, we can enjoy this crazy movie all together. Speaking of everybody taking some hits, it's really weird to see, the far left really celebrate this movie when that side is portrayed as just so horribly inept and ineffectual in their rebellion. Like, they just can't get anything done. One Battle After Another is based on a book from the 1960s, which of course dealt with the turmoil in those days, which is very similar to the turmoil of these days, which I think is why it's still an applicable story. And it's been updated, I think, pretty well. Interesting, The Long Walk recently came out based on a commentary on Vietnam, which I don't think was updated well. But yes, history repeats itself. And shockingly, so many people refuse to learn from it, which is in large part why it keeps repeating itself. Like the freestyle criticism and rebellion from the far left in the 1960s failed. It obviously made great gains in some regards, but, yet we still find ourselves back in this position. So why would you repeat those tactics? It's crazy. The elements in the movie that are, I think, the most compelling are the ones that address current illegal immigration. And it's that group that's run by Benicio Del Toro that actually is the most effective, and I feel sympathetic. Here, speaking of history repeating itself, they draw a correlation to other similar situations, which also were successful, although, of course, the jury's still out on today's current situation. But, they draw parallels to the Underground Railroad, and then also hiding Jewish people from the Nazis in Europe, hiding and getting a lot of them to safety during World War II. So to watch this group, to see how they operate in beautiful simplicity, I was in awe of how they operated. There's like this one, it's a sequence involving Leonardo DiCaprio in custody. And it was just so simple and so effective. I was like, that's incredible. I loved that. I thought it was so good. You know, the main rebel group in this movie just seems to want to create chaos for the sake of creating chaos. And that sometimes makes their group frustrating. But Benicio Del Toro's group doesn't want a lot of attention. Their goal is just to make sure that their people survive. And I think that's really commendable. You can't argue with it. And I think it's really inspiring and mesmerizing. I was truly moved by that storyline. Is this movie just a bunch of political statements strung together? No, it has action and comedy. Let's talk about the action first. There's actually quite a bit of action. People are saying this has far more action than any Paul Thomas Anderson movie to date. And you know, he borrows from the best. I'd say the first third borrows heavily from Christopher Nolan. And then the second 2/3, you know, what's left of the movie, really borrows heavily from the Coen Brothers, and very effectively. There's a third act chase sequence out in the desert that will probably become one of the greatest cinematic chase sequences in Hollywood history. It's incredible. There's also a riot that takes place in a sanctuary city in the middle of the night as Sean Penn's soldiers move in on the rebels. And, you know, it's a sanctuary city. They want to protect the rebels. The beauty of this extended sequence is really amazing, with rebel foot soldiers on skateboards and then dancing across the rooftops in silhouette. It was just gorgeous. Really, really strong. And then again, very funny at points. There's DiCaprio's character, who has fried his brains, admittedly, from drugs and alcohol over the years, and therefore doesn't remember any of the protocol for his rebel group. And it's very complicated, necessarily so. It was interesting to see how rebel groups operate. I would love to know if this stuff was true. Again, I feel it's a missed opportunity on the part of this movie's ad campaign to let us know whether or not this is based on fact. But it's a very funny and unique gag to have this old hippie who can't remember any of his passwords. They get surprising amount of mileage out of that. And also the ridiculousness of Sean Penn's character, who goes full RFK Jr. Truly an absurd individual who you would, at first I was like, this character's like a clown. But then I was like, you know, RFK exists and this is like the exact same guy. I also want to give you a heads up that the first third of the movie is very sexual, far more than you would think for a movie about a rebellion. You're like, whoa, there's a lot of hanky panky going on here. It's like sometimes veers into like Dear Penthouse. I was part of a rebellion. So you're like, what? I mean, it's definitely an adult film. But then you have to think about the fact that so many real life major figures and organizations have been taken down by hanky panky, right? Like I just saw a story that Oliver North, less than a year after his wife has died, just married his former secretary/model from 40 years ago during that whole scandal, who helped him destroy evidence who he swore he never had a relationship with. I mean, maybe he didn't, but there was clearly some kind of attraction there that he acted on immediately after his wife died 40 years later. I mean, you just can't make this stuff up. And this movie embraces the craziness of the world that we're living in. Finally, how's the acting? Well, as I said, the real standout is Mr. Benicio Del Toro. He just steals the movie out from everybody else. He's having one heck of a year. Wow! I adored his performance earlier in The Phoenician Scheme. I feel bad I waited to see that until it came out on Peacock, but wow, I loved it. If you haven't seen that movie, I'd go back and check it out, particularly if you love business as I do. That's a really phenomenal film. And here, very different performance. He just, is mesmerizing as this quiet, patient, charming warrior. I loved him. I couldn't get enough of him. And maybe they gave you just the right amount, right? You're like, it was amazing. I'm still thinking about a lot of his scenes. DiCaprio and Penn, always great. I mean, they're award-winning famous actors for a reason. They're always going to choose compelling scripts, particularly DiCaprio. I think DiCaprio, even when he misses, he still kind of hits. As for the female characters, well, this movie is written and directed by a man who isn't that interested in the female characters beyond what they mean to the male characters. I mean, it is what it is. It's never hurt Christopher Nolan, who does the exact same thing. But don't expect this mother-daughter combo to be fleshed out at all, even though they're so vital to the story. You're like, it's 2 hours and 45 minutes. They do use all that time, but again, it is what it is, and I do like the film. It's not a movie about women. To Teyana Taylor, it's like, like a film noir. They're like, what a dame. And you're like, what is the dame? Do we know? You're not supposed to know more about the dame. All right. So to Teyana Taylor's credit, she adds and layers herself. And often, even though it's not really totally there in the script, she still is able to convey, sometimes with just a look, the complexity of what's going on with her character inside. There's one look that she gives her daughter at this pivotal moment, her baby daughter. It really stuck with me. I think she did an amazing job. I wish her revolutionary, though, was more effective rather than being presented mainly as an object of lust for the male characters. I mean, I kid you not. I mean, that's the story, but that's how the character is used. Chase Infiniti, who, get this, is named after Dr. Chase Meridian from Batman Forever and Buzz Lightyear to infinity and beyond. Again, you can't beat the real world. All right, and I do think it's interesting because in the past, Hollywood has often hidden the real world and, tried to make it fit neatly into a box instead of embracing the chaos that it is. And this movie embraces the chaos. The best thing about her performance is that as the film goes on and her character gets pushed, you truly see her mother's ferocity and bad decision-making skills come forward. She does very much. Chase Infiniti really sells you on her being Teyana Taylor's daughter. You're like, there it is. There it is. She's also front and center in the film's tense and action-filled third act and is part of that instantly iconic chase sequence, which very, very clever. I'm excited for you to see that. And to her credit, Regina Hall manages to make a very strong impression with an extremely small role. So, the more and more I think about One Battle After Another, the more and more I respect it, and maybe even like it. I think, even as I did this review, I started to like the film more and more. I have made plans to see it again when it comes out. I want to see it with a regular audience instead of critics. And, there is a lot of heat about the movie. I mean, the first reactions were incredible on social media. They're doing the whole, 70 millimeter play, the prestige play. I mean, it's Paul Thomas Anderson. Look at this cast. It's going to be a fun weekend at the movies, and I'm excited to be a part of that energy. I think it was very smart to release this film at the beginning of awards season because it allows everyone to mull it over. I mean, I saw this movie at this point 2 weeks ago. Really, my opinion on it is changing exponentially as time progresses. So I think by the time voting starts at the end of the year, everyone might have fallen in love with this movie. If you're at all a cinephile, you need to see this because it's clearly going to be a major part of this year's awards discussion. And it might even win Best Picture. I think it's shaping up to be the frontrunner. I mean, again, it's very early days, but this is very strong. DiCaprio has made a lot of almost 3-hour movies at this point, and I have to say he's building up quite the collection. And this one definitely belongs in it. Hey, if the Coen Brothers aren't going to make this type of movie anymore, why shouldn't other filmmakers step up? And this is Paul Thomas Anderson's best film, I think, since There Will Be Blood, which is ironic because that lost out on Best Picture to No Country for Old Men at the Oscars back in 2008. And I agree with a lot of the commentary that this is Paul Thomas Anderson's No Country for Old Men. A film that I also disliked when I first saw it, but which has grown on me quite a bit over the years. I recently rewatched it, and I was like, that was pretty good. So that's my review of One Battle After Another, hitting theaters September 26th, and premium tickets are going fast. I'm talking the IMAX, the Dolby, and make sure you not only get a screen that you like, but a seat that you like, a comfortable seat, because when you factor in trailers and the pre-show, you're looking at over 3 hours at the theater. So settle in. I think you're in for a really intriguing, interesting experience. So share your thoughts down below. Again, subscribe today. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.